This week, freelance writer and author of girls newsletter Freya India published a Substack post titled "Nobody Has a Personality Anymore." In the piece, she explains how therapy speak and self-diagnosis have taken over how we talk about ourselves and our relationships, turning every quirk, feeling, or decision into a symptom to be analysed, and in trying to explain everything through a psychological framework, we've lost language for personality, mystery, and soul. In it, she says, "We have lost the sentimental ways we use to describe people. Now you're always late to things, not because you are lovably forgetful, not because you are scattered and interesting and secretly loved for never arriving on time, but because of ADHD.
But maybe you're also late just because you're useless or selfish or all of those kinds of things.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But also, you are shy and stare at your feet when people talk to you, not because you are your mother's child, not because you are gentle and sweet and blush the same way she does, but autism. You are the way you are, not because you have a soul, but because of your symptoms and diagnosis. Every heartfelt, annoying, interesting piece of you categorized. The fond way your family describe you medicalized. The pieces of us once written into wedding vows, read out in eulogies, remembered with a smile, now live on doctor's notes and mental health assessments and BetterHelp applications. We are not people anymore. We have been products for a long time, and these are our labels." Is it true that nobody has a personality anymore?
I think this is hyperbolic, and you can be someone with quirks and very specific characteristics, and you can also have an autism diagnosis. Like, both of those things can be true. And if you do go to a wedding or a funeral, you'll notice that it is not a list of labels. It is the things that the way that we remember people or characterize people are by their contradictions. That is how it happens. But as with a lot of writing, I think that this writer is reflecting to a phenomenon that's occurring on the internet. And there is such a difference between therapy speak and therapy culture and sitting down with a psychologist. They're actually two completely different things. And if you sit down with a psychologist, they actually aren't trying to label you, and they're not trying to position every relationship you have as codependent or an attachment disorder or blah, blah, blah. They're trying to see your personality as this complex and always evolving thing. And what psychologists also will focus on and have you be more open to is that personality is ever changing. Like, that's maybe something that I have felt a little bit shift, is that the way that we're starting to talk about personality is as though it is set in stone and it doesn't evolve. But it's always changing. Of course it is. And that's why I realised reading this article that she put words around why I love fiction so much. And the reason I love reading fiction is because there is no character that has ADHD, full stop. That's the end of their story. Yeah. It is the contradictions and the mess and the complications of that person, and then how their traits intersect with plot and have them grow. By the end of a book, someone's always a different person. Like, that's what we're watching. And it's that evolution that I'm invested in.
It's that time of year where we all collectively realize that we don't actually own any good long sleeve shirts. If you can relate but you don't want to blow your budget, you have to check out eBay. It's packed with quality clothes from trusted sellers, including the global and Australian brands we actually wear. I know we're all trying to be a bit more sustainable, so shopping pre-loved on eBay is such a win for the circular economy. Clothes get a second life, and you get something brand new to introduce to your wardrobe. You'll find so many options, whether you're into designer brands or you just want something that does the job. Plus, eBay's authenticity guarantee means you can shop with confidence. Every item gets checked by professionals before it lands at your door, so you know it's authentic. Everyone has a thing. Shop your pre-loved fashion thing on eBay.
How much do you think this is about categorizing other people as a way to understand them, and how much is categorizing ourselves? Like, for example, this idea of narcissist, that's a word people don't throw it around about themselves, but they certainly throw it around about other people. So you're not just selfish or self-absorbed or going through a time of main character energy, you're a narcissist. And in the same way, people don't feel anxious, they have anxiety. Now, I have a couple of these diagnoses, and I've found it actually really helpful for understanding my own behaviour and responses to things, like a lens through which I can see them. But I also can see how very quickly it becomes boring and a default to just flatten everything through that lens.
Yeah. And there was actually a really interesting kind of data point in that article, which was that according to a 2024 survey, 72% of Gen Z girls said that mental health challenges are an important part of my identity.
Yeah.
And that worried me because I thought, well, it's the only way to have their pain validated.
Yeah.
Like that's what it says, is like I'm in pain or I'm feeling distress. And when I have a label, I remember feeling
people will take me more seriously.
Yeah, people will actually listen to me. And we've always minimized the pain of young girls. So I can understand why that's happening, but that's not a recipe for happiness, I suppose.
On your point, Mia, where you said when you were diagnosed and you kind of got both sides. So there was actually a US government study done in 2021 where researchers wanted to figure out what happens to people when they're given a diagnosis, not just medically, but also emotionally, socially, and practically. And they said there were those positive emotions like validation, as in like someone finally believes me. But it also changed people's self-identity where they started seeing themselves as their condition.
Yeah, I definitely found that was something I had to become aware of and then avoid, because straight away it's almost like falling in love and you just want to say that person's name all the time and you feel like you've been given this roadmap to understanding yourself, but then it does start to sound boring when you just keep going, oh, that's my ADHD, oh, that's my ADHD, oh, that's my anxiety.
But I also feel like when it comes to diagnosis, and I was talking to a friend who works in that space and in that social policy space, but it makes you understand why a person is as they are. For example, if I had a friend who was diagnosed with depression, I think it also allows you as a friend or as a family member to kind of form some sort of empathy around that rather than just thinking that they are just the way they are, or like that they putting a label on it saying that they are a narcissist. I was reading a blog post by a psychotherapist named Masumi Saha, and she said being nervous before a big event is labeled as anxiety. A disagreement with someone might be called toxic. And it just made me realize that I have done this so much where I use therapy speak in my everyday language to kind of make excuses for things. Like there's been times I've told friends like, hey, I can't come out to dinner, I need my depression nap. And I'm like, I just needed a nap and I just happened to have depression. I think putting that word depression with everything I say about myself gives me the excuse to use it in a serious matter without being serious. And I also use it as a blocker to stop people from questioning it. Like my friends have every right to call me out and be like, just come to dinner.
Yeah, because but they're not going to if you say it's a depression nap. But if you just say I need a nap.
Yeah. Because I am the type of person who like constantly uses therapy language in my everyday. There's like a celebrity who I find myself quoting every single week. It's Jemima Kirk.
Yeah.
You know, she played Jessa in Girls.
I think I know this quote.
Oh my God,
Sex
it's so
education.
good.
What
So
does she say?
does like, I think once a year, she does these big Ask Me Anythings on Instagram where she puts a question box up and the audience asks her questions.
And she's quite candid.
She's so candid. And one of the questions she got years ago, someone wrote in and said, any advice for unconfident young girls? And she just replied, I think you guys might be thinking about yourselves too much.
I love that.
And I say that to myself all the time.
And what I've found through, having the absolute privilege of at points in my life sitting down across from a psychologist is how often they say to me, not that's normal, but they help explain why I might need that nap or whatever. What they don't do is tell me I'm abnormal, put a label on it, and kind of, go, that's the way you were built. Whereas the thing of like, the classic TikTok, which is 5 things I thought were part of my personality but are actually just my ADHD. I don't think that that's often that helpful. I think probably it's kind of both.
It is both. I think that's exactly right. Having had that exact experience, my first reaction when I was diagnosed and had this label was, I mean, a million, but there was some relief going, oh, there's a reason for all of these things. But then there's also a sense of, oh, I thought I had this unique, quirky personality, but I've just got all these textbook list of symptoms of this really common, way of thinking and, neurological condition or neurodivergent condition. And
I think it's an attempt to project order onto chaos as well, right?
And have a roadmap.
Yeah. And something as complex as personality and human relationships. Like when I met my half brother, and he my mum had him when she was very young, and he was then adopted and he went and moved overseas. And I met him when he was in his mid-30s. And having that experience exploded my view of what made personality. That's why there were brilliant moments in this essay
What do you mean?
I mean, it's not as simple as we are a product of our childhood. It's not as simple as we are a product of our genes. We are
learned behaviour. The combination.
It's this unexplained, and the beauty is in the unexplained.
So do you mean that there were aspects of him that were really similar to you, even though you were not raised together?
Yes.
And aspects that weren't?
Exactly. So sitting there, he had these certain gestures that he made that my mum said, oh, that was my father. It was like sitting there with my father, right? And then there were experiences he had in his 20s that, thoughts or crises he had that were nearly identical to things that I had gone through. And so as much as we might like to think that, we are the product of how we were parented, or we are exactly the product of, the low dopamine or serotonin in our it is this incredibly chaotic, beautiful mix. And that's why getting to know people is so interesting.
It's the getting to know people, because I think this also comes up a lot in dating, because I feel like when we have all these terms like gaslighting, toxic, it's so easy to chuck that label onto someone, because it's much easier to say that instead of saying, oh, they just didn't like me. They were doing like all of these things. And it's even like attachment styles, right? Like, oh, he was just avoidant and I'm anxious, so that's why we don't work out. And I think it's like filtering down into this thing where, as you said, Mia, like it's a bit of both. And I think what you said about how you got that like sense of relief, but also it's so hard to not kind of skew your identity to being that one thing where every single thing you do, you're like, oh, is that because of my ADHD?
And that's limiting, don't you think?
Yeah.
So I think when it can become a bit of a prison or a cage is when you just think, oh, well, I'll never be able to be on time because I have ADHD, or I'll always interrupt because I have ADHD. And it can become, cop-out's the wrong word, but a limitation.
Yeah. The dating example is such a good one, because it is such a time, like the creation of a dating profile, where we are forced to use labels. It's like, how do I present myself as a product to be consumed and liked? And you've kind of got to go, well, what are my hobbies? What do I do for a living? Like what are my personality traits? And there was this quote in the essay that said that happiness is about almost actually being able to forget yourself. And in a culture where we're constantly producing and
being perceived,
expressing
aware
and communicating
of being perceived
identity, then we're not able to forget ourselves. We're always in the process of kind of labeling.
It reminded me a little bit about, how in the last probably decade, maybe less, there've been a whole lot of new names for different types of sexuality. So pansexual, polysexual, ambisexual, and they all mean slightly different things, instead of just being able to say, oh, I'm attracted to this person. So it's about identity. Like we're all retreating further and further and wanting to categorize ourselves more and more. And I don't
There's
say
also
that
a
as
need to want to understand.
and also belong to a community.
Yeah.
And
Which has been so important for
and not be ordinary.
Yeah.
I think that being able to say I'm this or I'm that or I have it. But at a certain point, when are you just, I guess that's the whole point of this story, when are you just you? When are you just the sum total of your experiences, your conditions, your mental health, your opinions, your upbringing, your emotions?
Yeah, something that can't be labelled.
Yeah, we're sort of needing to put all these Post-it notes on everything and say, oh, it's my this and it's my that. And
yeah. After reading the Substack, were you able to identify qualities of your personality that you feel like are just your personality?
Oh, that's such a good question.
It's funny. I went really deep on the definition of personality after that because I was like, hang on, what even is personality? And of course, it's the 5 traits that they talk about, and some are more stable than others. But we were talking about this on Parenting Out Loud the other week, and I was saying we're talking about deeply feeling kids. This is the term going around. And I was saying I worry about labels like that because particularly in childhood, personality is changing. And you might look at your kid and go, you're shy and you're timid and you're risk averse. I have totally done this. And then the next day they surprise you. And that's how humans are.
Yeah.
Like that's the beauty of a relationship with anyone is that they will change. And there are some traits like extroversion, introversion apparently stays pretty stable. Others, a life event will absolutely transform you. I feel as though I have a different personality probably since having a baby for a variety of reasons. And I know people after grief, like profound grief or, experiencing a particular trauma or whatever, their personality changes.